Who's your daddy now? The Detroit Lions last night had a commanding victory over the Green Bay Packers, in essence setting a new tone in the NFC North. We're going to talk about it in today's episode, folks, so stay tuned. It started with an owner who had a last name fans despised, hiring a coach that the experts thought was crazy,
But I got a plan, I swear to you.
who traded for a QB that was said to be washed up. They said the Detroit Lions would never amount to anything, that it would always be the same old Lions. But this team, our team, has a new identity, defined and expressed by the crazy head coach,
Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and three toes, I will beat your ass.
led by the QB that nobody thought was good. Motor City Mania is in full swing and ready to start. So join the show and be prepared for kneecap biting, because Motor City Mania starts right now. Hello everyone, and welcome back to yet another episode of MCM, Motor City Mania. I'm your host David T. Pike, and we are diving in right now. Woo-wee, boys and girls, it is a great day to be a Detroit Lions fan. It is a great Friday morning because the Detroit Lions have officially decided to put a stamp on it. They are the new owners of the Green Bay Packers. They are the kings of the North. This is official. We can officially put that title out there now because the Lions did something last night that we as Lions fans, if you've been a faithful member of the Lions as far as a fan, everything else, you have been waiting for this day. You have been waiting for this moment. You have been waiting for this validation that the Lions have finally figured it out. You have been waiting for the evidence. You have been waiting for the proof that shows, okay, my Detroit Lions have actually figured out how to not only win games, but win important games, win games that matter, and have now figured out how they're going to actually move forward. And we're going to talk about in today's video. Man, I'm still stuck on last night a little bit. But here's the thing. Let's get into the nuts and bolts of this whole thing. When you take a look at what the Lions did last night against the freaking Packers, you are talking about, in essence, a near perfect victory in terms of what you want to see from a team that has to first and foremost go into a hostile stadium, has to go into a division rival stadium, and has to go into said stadium with the division lead on the line, and it's in prime time. Pretty much you have all the pressure is on you to perform, because again, going into that game, the Lions were expected to win. Now granted, if you take a look at all the betting odds, if you take a look at everything that was going into that game, pretty much everybody, myself included, thought that this game was going to be like maybe a difference of a touchdown, and we could pretty much have already thrown that one out within the first quarter. By the time we got to halftime, it was looking like the Lions were well on their way to a blowout victory. Now granted, that's not the way it happened, but again, that was what it was looking like. But let's understand something here. If you take this victory against the Packers and you start playing a little bit of history in this, what the Lions did last night in terms of stringing everything together, going back to the last couple of games, is very, very impressive. First and foremost, last night's victory marked 4 straight wins of the Lions against the Packers. That is not something that has normally happened over the last 20 years. In fact, if I think about it hard enough, the Lions may have done that maybe 1 or 2 other times in the last 20 years. And considering the fact that the Lions play the Packers twice every single year because they are a division rival, that pretty much right there ought to tell you something. The Lions have not been very good at stringing consistent wins against the Packers ever since, Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers have been there. But even if we go back for the last 4 games, that pretty much means that the last 3 games that Aaron Rodgers was there, we beat him. And now we've already started the next quarterback era in Jordan Love on the right foot with a victory. So again, 4 straight wins against the Packers, automatically just something that I'm very, very proud of. I'm very happy of as a Detroit Lions fan. That's number 1. But it gets even better. Number 2, 4 straight wins against the Packers, but also 2 straight primetime game wins against the Packers. Because again, Week 18 was a primetime game that got flexed. This game was a primetime game. Didn't get flexed. It was already scheduled that way. But again, 2 straight primetime wins against our division rivals, the Packers. I don't know how far back that one I'd have to go to figure out. But again, When you win 2 straight primetime games against your division rivals, a team that has pretty much had ownership of the NFC North for the last 2-3 decades, that's impressive. And then finally, I actually found this one out from the Lions PR team on Twitter. 6 straight divisional wins. That has not happened for the Detroit Lions since 1995. That's impressive. So pretty much when you take a look at what the Lions did last night, they set a lot of different tones. They actually were able to break a lot of trends. They were able to do something last night that the Lions have simply just not done a whole lot of over the last 2 or 3 decades. So that was the first thing I wanted to talk about really quickly. Now let's actually kind of get into the game as far as taking a bird's eye view of it and kind of talking about some of the generic stuff and the more specific stuff as we get into this. But first and foremost, got to commend Aaron Glenn here. Got to give him his credit. Got to give him his due. The Lions defense, for the most part, had a pretty strong game again. They garnered 5 sacks. They got 2 interceptions. Jerry Jacobs definitely needed those interceptions because one of the guys that constantly kept getting burned by Lions fans, including this one, was Jerry Jacobs because of all the freaking defensive pass interference calls that he was getting thrown his way. And on top of that, of how badly he got burned in the last 2 games against wide receivers. So it was like, listen, Jerry Jacobs absolutely ecstatic that he got those 2 interceptions. Literally made Jordan Love's literal misery, along with the defensive line and the edge rushers of the Lions as well. So Lions defense put in a very strong game again. Did a really good job. Kind of fell to a lull. Kind of fell into a sleep probably around the 3rd quarter, early 4th quarter. But they definitely stood tall. They definitely made another good game of it. So again, as I said earlier in a couple of episodes, I want to continue to see this for the rest of the year. I already know that a lot of people in my stream last night, and even some after the stream, said, so do you still want to fire Aaron Glenn? And I said, I'm going to keep saying the same thing that I said. Unless Aaron Glenn can do exactly what we've seen for the remainder of the year, I still want him gone. Because here's the thing. Like I said in a previous episode, this is the standard. If you can keep to the standard, then I'm cool with you. If not, then I still want you gone. But I'm not here to talk about that. I'm just, again, answering to what people have asked me. So, now, here's the other thing. I just want to say to the Lions, welcome back, David Montgomery. Welcome back, Monty. So glad to have him back because if you think about it, without David Montgomery, our offense kind of would have had a little bit more of a problem because, again, Montgomery scored 21 of our points last night because he got 3 rushing touchdowns. So, again, having Montgomery in the backfield definitely makes a difference. Now, granted, Jahmyr Gibbs did an excellent job filling in for him last week. But, again, when Montgomery's in the game, it's a little bit different. And, again, when you take a look at the stat line, it definitely shows. Montgomery had 32 rushes for 121 yards. Granted, wasn't 4 an average, but it was pretty close. It was at 3.8 an average. But those 3 touchdown runs absolutely are what the Lions needed to win this game last night. Again, I said it earlier in the week. The Lions were going into Lambeau against a team that really was bad against the freaking run. So we already knew that the Lions were going to want to run the ball pretty much a lot in yesterday's game. So that's what they did. And Montgomery did exactly that to perfection. When you get 3 touchdown runs in a game, you're doing something right. Now, as far as the passing game, though, the passing game didn't do nearly as well as I wanted it to, but again, it did just enough to kind of get by, which is exactly, again, when you consider the Packers have been a pretty good pass defense team. Now, to be entirely fair, I thought they were going to do a little bit better because the Packers' 2 starting cornerbacks were out. But apparently the Packers can get their passing defense to work without their starting cornerbacks. But again, Goff did pretty decent. He had 19 of 28, which was for 67.9 completion percentage, 210 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, had an 86.9 pass rating and a 61.2 QBR rating, which that's pretty good. It's not great. It's not like blow them away numbers, but again, efficient, steady, reliable leadership. And again, one of the things about that whole thing that I saw out of Goff was, again, showing that gritty leadership to, again, take the early adversity on the chin with the interception, come right back down the field, throw a touchdown, get the game back on their side, and pretty much the Lions went off from there. It went from 7-3 to like 24-3 in a hurry. So, Goff continues to show gritty leadership, and I want to say this else. This is funny, because, again, if you're a Lions fan, you already know where I'm kind of going with this, but as Lions fans, we had to deal with the insufferableness of just how much Aaron Glenn was on our Lions and also in terms of other teams. Because one of the things about Aaron Rodgers for so many years was that stupid discount double check belt thing that he did. And it's like, listen, if you got the goods, if you can play the way that you're going to do that, then okay, whatever. As much as I didn't like to see it, Rodgers earned the ability to do that. But I'm going to say this right now. Goff has shown his ownership of the Green Bay Packers. I took a look at this. Goff's all-time record against the Green Bay Packers, even when he was playing with the LA Rams, 5-1 all-time. But ever since he came to Detroit, he is 4-1 against the Packers with the Lions. I don't even think any other quarterback has even come close to that as far as the Lions are concerned. And in those 4 wins and 1 loss that Goff has had with the Lions, he has completed 103 times to 154 attempts, 1,055 yards, 7 touchdowns to 3 interceptions with a 93.4 passer rating. I'm just going to put it out there plain as day. Goff is the Packers' daddy. Goff is the guy that if you want to beat the Packers, you want him on your sideline, because apparently Goff knows how to win against the Packers. When you have a 5-1 record all-time against the Packers and a 4-1 record with the Detroit Lions, a team that's not been known to beat the Packers all that much, that's pretty impressive in my opinion. So again, Goff has pretty much shown, yeah, he owns the Packers, much like how Rodgers used to own the Bears, but that's for something else altogether. However, though, while we're on the topic of the offense, there is a bit of a problem, though, with the offense. The offense, while it has shown its ability to score points, obviously, it put up 34 last night, there still looks to be problems where the offense cannot consistently keep up, because it's like, listen, there will be times when the offense looks like it can just do no wrong, and it'll just go on a tangent where it scores 1, 2, 3, 4 drives in a row, and then all of a sudden, for like a quarter and a half, as we saw last night, the third quarter going into almost halfway through the fourth quarter, the offense kind of just like completely fell into a lull. And there was some like really weird play calls as far as runs when we should have passed when we should have run, and it looked like the offense is still trying to figure out its footing a little bit. It looks like it's inconsistent. But again, when you score 34 points, I can't really complain all that much. One thing that I will say, though, is that the Lions have got to do a better job with their turnovers, because so far, through the last 3 games, we've turned the ball over at least 1 time in all of those games. That definitely needs to get straightened out, because as far as I'm concerned, and as far as Dan Campbell is concerned, and he said it himself, we're not good enough to get over those turnovers. So it's like, listen, we got to get over the fumbles. We got to get over the interceptions. We got to clean up those turnovers. The offense has got to get better as far as that's concerned. But again, I'm not going to take that away from the team. They had their turnover. They responded. They were able to make the win out despite the turnover. So again, just something to note there. Now, let's go back to the defense really quickly. I'm going to say this right now. Again, the defense has stepped up very, very well over the last 2 weeks. And again, commendable effort by the defensive players and also by Aaron Glenn. But what I find particularly impressive about this whole thing is this. Think about this one for a minute. Again, we all know what happened in those first 2 games with the Lions. They only got 1 sack in those first 2 games. But would it surprise you to know this? First 2 games, so first 8 quarters, we get 1 sack. In the last 8 quarters, 2 games, we have gotten 12 sacks. That is a production jump of literally 1,200%. Because you're talking about the same span of time, but you're getting 12 times the amount of production in that same period of time. You go from 1 sack to 12 sacks in the same period of time. That is impressive because, again, remember, last night we had 5 sacks against the Packers. The week before that against the Falcons, we had 7. Like, the Lions have all of a sudden figured out how to get sacks now at a premium. And the funny thing about it is I'm pretty confident if I went back, and I'm probably going to actually do this in my next episode, if I go back and check out how many sacks the Lions had at this point last year, it probably wouldn't even be anywhere close. But again, the fact that the Lions have now at this point got 13 sacks in their first 4 games, that's pretty impressive. Now granted, again, most of that has come over the last 2 games, but still pretty damn impressive all the same. Now, that's the Lions side of things. You honestly didn't think I was going to leave the Packers out of this. It's time for some Packers fans to eat their crow because, hey, y'all have been making us eat it for the last 20-something years. Now it's your turn. I'm just going to put this plain and simple. Unless Jordan Love can find a way to continue to progress, which at this point is not looking very likely because last night, Jordan Love got that completion percentage up, but he also got more interceptions. Because here's the thing. Last week's game against the Saints, he had 1 interception. Last night's game, he had 2. So great, you got the completion percentage up, but you also doubled your turnovers. I'm just going to say this right now. It looks like the Packers' reign is at an end. Because the Packers, at this point, like I've been saying, they're in a rebuild mode because, okay, you no longer have Aaron Rodgers. You no longer have Devontae Adams. At this point, you've lost a lot of your star power that you've had over the last couple of years. Now you're rebuilding. And now, granted, you have some nice pieces to work with. Again, Jordan Love could develop into something potentially good. You also have Romeo Doubs. You also have Christian Watson. You still have Aaron Jones. You still have A.J. Dillon. You still have some nice pieces on the offense. But I'm going to tell you this right now. A lot of people still wanted to think that the Packers could do something in the NFC North. Last night's game pretty much told everybody that, yeah, the Packers' reign of just being invincible in the NFC North, that's gone. That is gone. When the Lions come into your home turf and you're down by 24 points going into the second half, that's a problem. That's not something that the Lions, first and foremost, have done in a long time, and that's something that Packers fans have not witnessed in a long time. Again, they said it on the announcers. The announcers last night said, I think it was Kirk Herbstreit and Al Michaels, they said that they haven't seen a game like that from the Packers since like the 1980s. That's going back 30-something years. But again, just a point in general. Last night's game would have been a typical time when the Packers would have crushed the Lions because it's like, okay, you're coming to Lambeau Field. It's a primetime game. The Packers almost always in the past always found ways to win those games. Just absolutely, just completely would win the game on cruise control against the Lions. But last night's game was anything but. If anything, for the first half of the game, the Lions were on cruise control. The Packers offense could not get going. Again, let me just put this out there. If you realistically want to think of how bad it was for the Packers last night, there's one word that kind of shows how bad things were for the Packers. They looked vulnerable last night. The Packers looked like they could not do anything right, especially in the first half. Because here's how bad it was for the Packers in the first half. They were down by 24 points in the first half. As I already said, they were down 27-3. But here's where it gets even worse. The Packers' offense only had 20 total yards at the end of the first half. That's how bad the Packers' offense was at the end of the first half. They couldn't even get halfway to 100 yards. That just right there shows that there was something going on. And again, the reason why this is really bad is because you have to take a look at the head coach. Matt LaFleur is an offensive mastermind. He is known for his offensive prowess. But yet somehow he could only generate from his offense 20 yards in the first half. That's not particularly how should I say here, something that you want to rest your hat on. That's not something that makes you feel all warm and fuzzy. Now, the defense, on the other hand, performed a little bit better. But, again, not by much. Again, they were not able to stop the Lions' chunk plays or their explosive plays. There were tons of chunk passes throughout the entirety of the night. I think, let's see here, 24, 23, 35. There were at least a couple of big plays where the Lions just threw the ball down the field and got some 20-plus yard plays or more through the air. But they also consistently were getting 7, 8, 9, 10 yards a pop on the running game. The Packers did get some stops, but again, the majority of the time, the Lions were getting big chunk plays both through the air and on the ground. But again, like I said, the Lions already knew going into that game they wanted to run the ball, and run the ball they did. Which is exactly why the defense of the Packers, in my opinion, again, vulnerable. You've got a decent pass defense, but if you can't stop the run, that pass defense is not going to be able to hold up for very long, and that's pretty much what happened last night. Apart from the interception, the Packers' pass defense really didn't do a whole lot. And I'm going to say this right now. Packers fans, if there's one guy right now, other than Matt LaFleur, that they're extremely annoyed with, extremely mad with this morning, it's got to be Quay Walker, because let's think about this really quickly. Quay Walker last year in the Packers game in Week 18 cost the Packers, in essence, a chance in that game because he decided to get very physical, got his hands on a Lions trainer. That was a 15-yard penalty, which wound up getting him ejected. This game, he has a 15-yard penalty that turned a 3-point field goal into a 7-point touchdown because he decided that he was going to jump over the long snapper, which is a personal foul. You can't do that in the NFL, which everybody already knows it because that rule's been in place for quite a while. But yet again, Quay Walker makes a boneheaded decision which winds up costing the freaking Packers. Because remember something here, when that field goal went through, the Packers were at that point only down by 13 points. The Packers were still very much in the game. But when you take those 3 points off the board, then you put another 4 more on it, you go from literally at 14, you go from being down by only 13 to now you're down by 17. You're now down by 3 scores instead of only 2. So again, that penalty by Quay Walker, it was a backbreaker for the Packers because at that point, it pretty much just completely blew any chances they had to come back and win the game. And they were pretty close because again, let's be fair here. I'm trying to be fair to the Packers fans, even though I'm a Lions fan. The Packers were able to get the game to be much more respectable because again, They were down by 24 in the first half, but they brought it all the way back to only being down by 10. So that penalty by Quay Walker, that was a backbreaker. That was a soul crusher right there. So as far as I'm concerned, the penalties that the Packers had and also the first half damage that they got from the Lions, that pretty much was what sunk them. Now, having put all that out there together, let's finish this off with the Lions here and see what we got to look forward to. First and foremost here, as much as Lions fans don't like the fact that now we don't have anybody to watch on Sunday unless you're going to tune in and watch the Panthers, let's just put it out there. The Lions are probably very exuberant right now because, one, it was a short week, you've got the win. But now you've got the next 10 days to rest and prepare for your next opponent, which is a home game with the Carolina Panthers, which, oh, by the way, that's also a game that I guarantee you the Lions have definitely been looking forward to because the last time the Lions played the Panthers, that was a game that ultimately cost them a shot at the playoffs. And I guarantee you this, Aaron Glenn's got that game circled because that was a game where his defense got literally just destroyed on the ground. And one thing we know about the Lions this year is they've made a huge commitment to stopping the run game. So, the Lions now kind of get, in essence, a mini bye week to get better, to get rested and prepare for the Panthers. So, what are the keys now for the next 10 days? Well, one, get healthy. Get Decker more healthy. Get Brancher healthy again. Get Kirby Joseph back. Get Emmanuel Mosley back. Get all these lingering injuries that you have that you almost could have had in this game. Get them back to nearly as full strength as possible because now this is when things are going to start getting fun because, after the Panthers, we have the Bucs. After the Bucs, we have the Ravens. After the Ravens, we have the freaking Raiders. If the Lions can keep themselves healthy, they can literally win the next 3 out of 4 games, in my opinion, because you can beat the Panthers, you can definitely beat the Bucs, you can definitely beat the Raiders. The only team that's a little bit on the iffy side for me is the Ravens. But if you can win 3 out of those 4 games, you're sitting out at 6-2 going into the middle stretch of your schedule. This right here is where the Lions need to get healthy, they need to continue to stay focused, and continue to work into their schedule. So, this is a good mini bye week time for the Lions to have to get healthy and get prepared for the next set of games that they've got coming up. So take those 10 days, Lions. You've well earned them. You got yourself the win. You've got yourself the lead in the NFC North. You're the kings of the NFC North. It is a great day to be a Lions player, a great day to be a Lions coach, and it's an exceptionally great day to be a Lions fan. But anyway, folks, with that having been said, I think I've done a pretty good job of presenting this episode, and I am just grinning from ear to ear. So with that having been said, I just want to say thank you all for watching yet another episode of MCM, Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage you all to do one of these 3 things, or all 3 of them. Like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. If by chance you subscribed in the past and you forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed and you've not had a chance to do so, I highly encourage y'all right now to make sure you turn on that bell notification icon that's at the bottom of the page, so that way you never miss any more content that I push out. I also encourage y'all, please, to share this content with your Lions friends and family members. Share it here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it anywhere and everywhere you can with anybody and everybody that you can. And with that being said, folks, I just want to say thank you all for tuning into the show. Thank you all for your view. Thank you all for your patience. Thank you all for your support. And with that, I just want to say God bless. Thank you all for what you do. And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.